I did try. But working in that pub, it kind of felt like the whole enterprise was more about keeping me under control than putting money in my pocket. And I don't think that was just because Scrooge was an asshole. He could have been really nice, Bruno was, but that wouldn't have made a difference to the amount of control he had over me.
Nice. He's saying Bruno is equally an asshole, even though he wasn't.
Yeah, even though he was a good boss.
Yeah, just because of the work situation. So evil, man. So evil.
He is a good boss, defends him from being sexually assaulted by a customer, allows him to perform his shitty stand-up jokes, gives jobs to immigrants from other countries.
I know,
paying
not
a $15
racist.
minimum wage. Yeah. But no, he's the same as this like evil piece of shit tip stealing asshole from, you know, a completely different
alleged tip stealer. I don't know. I don't know. I can't imagine. Like, I've worked with some terrible jobs. I can't imagine them stealing my tips. I mean, that's just a level of crazy to me. Like, I would walk out if I saw that. I would not. Yeah. Everyone would walk out simultaneously. They'd be like, fuck that.
It's pretty crazy.
Consider another rich person and a famously nice guy, Andrew Carnegie. Carnegie was a Scottish immigrant to the United States who eventually became the richest man in the country. By today's standards, he was a multi-billionaire. And
look at that. Living the American dream.
Yeah.
An immigrant from another country comes to America and becomes the richest man in the country. Wow.
Carnegie.
Fucking capitalism.
Yeah. Carnegie Hall.
I guess he was white, so it doesn't count, right?
I don't know. He looks white. Yeah, sure. Santa-ish, maybe. I don't know.
And he was also, fun fact, the real-life inspiration for the character of Scrooge McDuck. I'm not making that up. Carnegie wrote an essay in 18...
Scrooge McDuck was that... What Ebenezer Scrooge was... who's Scrooge McDuck?
Scrooge McDuck
is the Disney character, right?
The duck, the really rich duck who swims in the pot of gold.
Okay. I thought
he was...
Okay. I don't know the Disney version. I thought it was from Ebenezer Scrooge. I thought Scrooge McDuck came from Ebenezer
Well, the
Scrooge.
name I'm assuming does.
Right.
But maybe the character.
Okay. But it would just make me think like Andrew Carnegie was probably the real life inspiration for Ebenezer Scrooge's book from this famous
maybe. I don't know
novel.
when that book came out.
Yeah. The chain of inspiration, I think, is a little off here. Because I think Scrooge McDuck started off as a comic character. Yes. Ebenezer Scrooge was before Scrooge McDuck. I'm just going to go out on a limb and make that assertion. But
Scrooge McDuck... Well, Scrooge McDuck was Scottish, though, so it probably was the personality was probably based off of.
Anyway.
1889, called The Gospel of Wealth, which is one of the most influential bits of philosophy I think I've ever read in my life. I've been hearing these arguments almost verbatim since I was born. The idea that the best way to help poor people is to give them a job as a ladder out of poverty. That's Carnegie. The idea that socialists are just lazy and they resent rich people for their success. That's Carnegie. The idea that wealth is created not by labor, but by the organization and intelligence of the people at the top. That's Carnegie. The idea that giving aid directly to the poor will make...
Don't you get to the top by organizing? Seems like you do.
Yeah.
Like,
well, it's funny because...
They're not just... they don't come from the top.
If you look at Carnegie's background... I mean, like his parents, like they were like cotton mill workers. Like it's not like, he didn't come from wealth. Like he definitely worked his way from the bottom up.
Yes. Yeah.
Make them dependent and hurt them more in the long run. That's Carnegie. Skiing down a mountain of gold coins.
I don't like that one.
You know, like which one?
The welfare one. Because it goes against UBI. So.
And making Christmas trees out of dollar bills. Okay, apparently that one was actually Scrooge McDuck. But if Carnegie had had that much gold, I bet you he would have tried it. A lot of these ideas he pinched from a philosopher called Herbert Spencer, who I talked about in my video on Charles Darwin. But Carnegie updated them. He brought them back. And more importantly, he made them seem like kindness. Because by most accounts, he was a pretty nice guy. He gave away...
But it's so funny because he basically in this video proved Carnegie right.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's like, oh, you know, how did this rich, you know, businessman, of course he says that just giving people money is going to make them, you know, not feel fulfilled and not give them self-worth. And yet he complains about a job he had where he just got money to do nothing and how it was like the worst experience of his life.
Yeah, he didn't feel fulfilled.
So is he proving Carnegie right, or what's happening?
But there are jobs that you would like pay to do if you had the means to do it.
Sure.
I mean, there are tons of fun jobs.
Of course there are.
Billions of dollars in today's money, and he encouraged rich people to give their wealth away for the public good rather than hoard it. Carnegie Hall in New York City is named after him because he paid for it. But here's the kicker. Who gets to decide what the public good is? Well, Andrew Carnegie does, of course. He decided that the people of...
It's so funny that all these socialist types, they're all like, oh, how dare these individuals make decisions about what to do with their wealth? This should all be up to the mandate of the people, right? And then what happens 4 years ago? The mandate of the people votes Donald Trump into office, and they all lose their mind because they're like, the will of the people is going to vote in fascism.
Yeah.
It's like, well,
it's all very convenient.
You know, sometimes when you leave everything up to the will of the people, they're going to go in directions you don't like, Ollie. I don't know what to tell you.
Many times.
New York would benefit from a big fancy concert hall, and undoubtedly, many of them have. But he didn't go to the people and say, hey, I've got a few spare $1 million, what do you need? Because that would have put them in control.
He went to the politicians and he said, what do we have to do to get this thing built? Right?
Right.
I mean, somebody he went to. I mean, no man rules alone, right? He had to grease some palms in order to get that thing built.
By the time of his death, it is estimated that he gave away $76 billion. By
$76 billion. Wow.
Jesus,
that's crazy.
Christ.
Yeah, and Ollie's here shitting all over him. Yeah. He could have burned it all.
I said he
Imagine
left.
that. He's like, no, I want to be buried with it all like the pharaohs did.
And he left the rest of his money up to foundations, charities, and pensioners.
Oh,
when he died. So there you go.
Yeah, he liked his employees. Good for him.
Yep. Maybe they could have voted.
I mean, if you have that much wealth, you really have to feel like gifted. You really have to feel like you've grateful for having the opportunity to amass that much wealth. This is why conceptualizing the economy as opportunities. I mean, he had opportunities that only he knows. Like, if it wasn't for that opportunity, I probably wouldn't be in this position. So many people, though, oh man, and they're bad people. They look past that stuff. Like, they want to think, no, I made my own opportunity. They don't want to bring luck into the equation anywhere. It's all just, my raw grit. I wouldn't be in this position if it wasn't for my raw grit. So much of it's luck, though.
This is so funny. He chose a lot of Carnegie's select quotes. Here's some quotes that he didn't choose from Carnegie.
Oh, goody.
Carnegie says, the amassing of wealth is one of the worst species of idolatry. No idol more debasing than the worship of money.
Oh, my God. That's great.
He said, the man who dies thus rich dies disgraced.
Wow.
And he apparently was a big proponent of the death and estate tax.
Really? Oh,
yes.
my God. That's great. But that estate tax.
Yep.
That's going to keep that's Ollie's inheritance there.
But see, this is what's so funny. This is like the perfect encapsulation of like socialists don't want to help poor people. They want to hate rich people. You have a guy who, and look, I don't know anything about him. Maybe he was a shithead, but you have a guy who from the outsets of it, he grows up in a working class, lower income family, completely works his way to being the richest person in the world. And even while doing so, has all these attitudes about you have to give away your wealth, about how you shouldn't just be, driven by money and all these things. He gives most of his money away, right? And yet Ollie still says this guy's awful and terrible.
Yeah.
Just because he was rich in the first place.
It's awful. It's totally awful.